Aldi expands its initiatives in sustainable food and beverage packaging. More major brands jump into the resale market. Asket expands use of its impact receipt for apparel. Virgin Atlantic gets initial approval for the world's first 100% sustainable aviation fuel transatlantic flight. And winemakers are exploring lighter bottles to help go green. All on this week's edition of Sustainable Life 5 in 5. My take on 5 highlights from the world of sustainable living, all in under 5 minutes. Hi everyone, and welcome to the 12th episode of the Sustainable Life 5 in 5 series. I'm Douglas Sabo, or at Green Living Doug across the social media channels. Welcome to this next episode. This is where I share with you my take on 5 highlights from the world of sustainable living, curated from the Sustainable Life blog at greenlivingdoug.com. So welcome to this episode. Now, before I get started, one quick note of preview. In about a week and a half, the next annual edition of the UN COP Climate Summit will take place. It will take place in Dubai this year, bringing thousands of government leaders, companies, private sector companies, researchers, NGOs, and others all into Dubai to talk about the next steps in the challenge of addressing and combating climate change and a transition to a net zero world. So I mention this because I'm aiming to actually do a preview before COP starts for all of you around how I'm seeing the topic of sustainable life showing up at the COP28 summit. So stay tuned for that. Now, again, the highlights I have for you today are curated from the blog. This week in the blog, we highlighted or covered 5 different topics. The Sustainable Life blog covered food and grocery, retail and recommerce, the world of apparel and fashion, sustainable travel and tourism, and the favorite Saturday topic of sustainable spirits and liquor. So again, I have pulled 5 highlights from across those different themes to share with you today. So please get ready for those. And by the way, if you do like this content, I do that every week. If you like this content, go ahead and like and subscribe, help us spread the word to others. And love to hear your input down in the comments. What were any of your highlights? What's your feedback on the highlights I shared with you today? What highlights might you have of your own? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'll set the timer. Keep us honest every week. I'm getting pretty good at this. Okay, let's go. First, in the world of sustainable food is a topic of sustainable grocery packaging. So this was a story that featured Aldi, which is a leading budget supermarket chain, continuing to work on its efforts to eliminate plastic packaging in its food and beverage that it's offered. So this is a story on Packaging Gateway where it talks about Aldi announcing that it's replacing its plastic packaging on its own brand beer and cider products, which is expected to eliminate about 95 tons of plastic waste annually. This is part of broader efforts that Aldi has in this topic area around sustainable packaging, from working on fully recyclable packaging for hand wash products, replacing single-use cutlery, also being part of the UK Refill Coalition with an in-store refill trial now underway at Aldi. Why? Food and beverage space, in grocery in particular, the packaging is such a key topic to address. So great to see that they're doing this. It's also very consumer facing, so I like the notion that this also would be something that consumers would be able to touch and feel and perhaps inspire them to look for progress from their grocery retailer in other places. Okay, Spotlight 2, more brands launching recommerce. This is a recent story from Retail Touchpoint's website, focused on a number of other major brands that are giving recommerce a try in various flavors and formats. So in this case, it highlighted the work of Crocs, piloting a retail take-back program in its stores in 10 states, where customers can return used Crocs and get a free charm, as well as have the Crocs then donated to a nonprofit or repurposed. Beyond Yoga also announced that it's launching a closet clean-out program. Put your clothes and apparel up on the ThredUp website with Beyond Yoga, and you will receive a credit for the sales to use on the Beyond Yoga site. And Tommy Hilfiger is announcing that it's become one of the first menswear brands in apparel to launch a secondhand menswear program. So love to see, I chose this story Love to see the continued progress in recommerce. Also, to give a sense, recommerce is not one thing. It comes in various shapes, sizes, and areas of focus. In this case, I also liked the fact of consumer nudges to give the secondhand marketplace a try. Third highlight, apparel impact receipts. This is a story from the Apparel Resources website focused on the work of the apparel brand Asket of its impact receipt. Now, it's an impact receipt, something that they launched back in 2020, but only for limited items. They've now expanded it across their collection, and it is a receipt that you actually get, and you can see in the visual, that covers CO2 emissions of the garment, water, energy use. It also goes across the life cycle from raw materials to the milling to manufacturing to the trims and the transport. So all part of their long-term ethos of the company around slowing down fashion and apparel consumption, including working to abolish seasonal collections. So I like the story both for the process itself, what brands can learn taking their apparel offerings through this type of process, as well as this consumer-facing touch and feel of the education moment of the impact of the garment. So like that for those reasons. Fourth highlight, the first 100% sustainable aviation fuel transatlantic flight. This is an announcement from Virgin Atlantic that it has made progress towards the world's first 100% sustainable aviation fuel transatlantic flight. Specifically in the announcement, it has been granted permission from the UK Civil Aviation Authority to fly November 28th from Heathrow to JFK on 100% SAF fuel versus the maximum blend that most governments allow now of 50%. This also involved a consortium of Boeing, Rolls-Royce, BP, and others. I chose it both, again, for the progress itself of the advancement of SAF toward a transatlantic flight, as well as it really underscores this need for radical collaboration, including the words right out of this, the CEO of Virgin Atlantic has said, the radical collaboration that's needed for something like this. Okay, fifth and finally, wine bottles get lighter. The Washington Post had a spotlight on the efforts in the wine industry to lighten the weight of wine bottles, including a recent announcement and launch from the Sustainable Wine Roundtable around an international agreement to lower the average weight of wine bottles from 550 grams to 420 by the end of 2026. This is significant because glass manufacture, transport, it's the most significant part of wine's carbon footprint in many cases, as much as nearly half. So the lower weight could actually reduce the carbon emissions from wine by about 25%. Facing challenges, certainly, consumer perceptions, concerns around breakage, but this is a great advancement and something also that consumers can touch and feel. 5 minutes, 5 highlights, hit it on the mark. Check those out. Lots of other stories related to that. I'd say an honorable mention in that for my overtime here in the sustainable spirits is also other work looking at alternative materials for bottles, looking at different shapes like the flat shaped wine bottle. So lots of work going in that space and all the others. Go ahead and check that out. So thank you again for joining me. Again, if you like this content, go ahead and like and subscribe. Please feel free to spread the word. Would love to, as always, hear your feedback down in the comments. So please go ahead and do that. We'll aim to get that preview of the COP28 summit out so everyone can get a feel how is sustainable life showing up across this massive event. And finally, for those of you in the United States, an early happy Thanksgiving wishes to you all. All right, thank you again for joining me. I'm Douglas Sabo at Green Living Doug on social media. Thanks and take care.